All right, wonderful. So good morning. My name is Andrea Seitz, and I serve as President and CEO for County. This is the economic development organization that supports all of our areas here, and we've been working diligently to bring you information on the COVID-19 crisis. And so with this, earlier this week on Tuesday, we had a federal panel with our staffers, Joelle Cannon from Senator Blunt's office, Clayton Campbell from Senator Hawley's office, and then also Mike Ussery from Congressman Long's office. And a big portion of the CARES Act, as we all know, is the Paycheck Protection Program. And so with us today, we have our panelists. We have Jeff Jones from Central Bank of the Ozarks, Chris Thomas from Ozark Bank, and Jessie Hughey from Bank of Missouri. And guys, I would love to welcome you this morning, and you might have to unmute yourselves. I was kind of getting some feedback here, so we'll work through the technical difficulties.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, let's jump in. I know you've all been getting changes. I've talked to through our business outreach organizations that have all utilized your various financial institutions for this program. And, give us a general overview and kind of the bank's perspective of the Paycheck Protection Program.
Who wants to go first?
Chris,
Go ahead.
Treasurer for Show Me. So how about you go first? Take it away.
Personally, I think the program's very simple for the borrowers to fill out, easy for us as banks to go in, verify the information that they've sent to us to confirm the amount they're applying for. So from my standpoint, it's been relatively easy, just very overwhelming from the sheer numbers that we've had come in.
Yeah, and can you speak to that? I mean, so far, and if you're able to, what are you seeing as far as number of applications and the organizations and jobs that are impacted because of this program?
The jobs is hard to put a good number to because we aren't seeing each and every employee with a business. We're seeing a lot of just 941s that are showing their overall payroll expense. So it's hard to show the true impact of jobs, but I would say that's very high. As far as the number of businesses we've seen, we're up there probably 145, 150 that we've ran through so far, which, that's pretty good for the size of bank that we are.
Sure. And Jessie, how about you? I know you handle all the SBA for Bank of Missouri and have done that personally. You and I have kind of walked that road. So what are you guys seeing from Bank of Missouri?
So honestly, we are getting a huge feedback from it. We've actually got all hands on deck right now. It's all of our lenders, all of our loan assistants, everyone in the back office. That's our main focus right now, and whatever we can do. Overall, I don't know the exact number of applications, but I know we've had a huge impact in the communities. We've been running them through as quickly as we can, and I know our staff's been working late hours just trying to make sure we can get in and get the loan numbers and get those funds secured.
Sure. And Jeff with Central Bank, I mean, I know you're just down the road from me here in Nixa as I came into City Hall today. So what's Central Bank seeing?
Actually, we're like what everybody else is saying. We are all hands on deck as of this morning. We have been really focused on this this whole time. We started entering apps as soon as they turned on the system Thursday night. So far, our loan analysts have informed me we've got 569 applications in. They estimate the impact of jobs at 11,730. in an amount of around $91 million. So that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, big impacts with just the three of you and your organizations represented. I want to take a minute to remind our participants and our attendees that are with us on Facebook. As we continue forward, I'm going to take this slide down, but please share any questions that you may have for our panelists through the Q&A option on our Zoom, or you can also comment live on Facebook and we'll try our best to get your questions answered. So with that, I want to move in to a little bit harder questions about the program itself. We've tried to get the information out there, read as much as we could, but from the actual application, what are these funds being used for and what time frame can that cover? And I'll just leave it open unless you want me to popcorn and pick people.
I guess I can start. The funds are for the PPP are primarily designated for payroll. They want 75% of the amount requested to go directly to payroll. That is open through June 30th. However, right now, it depends on how many funds are left available. I know in the next 2 days, they're talking about another, I think, 220 billion coming out to this program, but that has not passed at this time.
Wow. That was, I know, even when it first hit, and talking with a lot of our bankers throughout the community, we didn't know if we would have funds left on Monday when the applications opened on Friday. And so I'm thankful, at least, that it sounds like, we're getting applications in and people can continue to get this information gathered if they need this for their business to move forward at this time. So with the program itself on the additional use, you mentioned, 75 for payroll, 25 for additional expenses. Is that limited? What is excluded from the program? And I guess Jessie or Chris, I'll toss that one to either of you.
Basically on the program side, utilities, rent expense, mortgage interest expense can all be utilized. It's pretty descriptive of that's it, along with payroll. Any other items that you use it for, not allowed. You'll have to pay it back. So you won't get any forgiveness over, off of it.
Sure. And the forgiveness is a big portion. So, there's been a lot of confusion on who decides forgiveness, what is and is not eligible. Jessie, I'll ask you that question. Who decides? Who decides if our businesses have to pay this back or not?
So what we've been told is ultimately it's going to be SBA, is that the borrowers have to provide the verifications that everything has been used for the 8 weeks of payroll, plus the extra 25% for utilities, rent, or mortgage interest. And then from that point, they provide all the documentation to their bank, and then their bank will actually provide it to SBA, and SBA will do the final determination if that's going to be allowed to be forgiven or not.
Sure. Which I'm sure takes a lot of pressure off of you guys. When it first came out, it was, that's going to be on the backs of our banks. And I know we deal with our local businesses all the time. And so thankful to hear that there are some more checks and balances there, and that helps you all getting the information to our businesses. So what are the actual rates and terms of the Paycheck Protection Program?
So I'm happy to actually take that one. It's a 2-year loan at 1% max that is set by SBA. There is no payments for 6 months. So if it is not forgiven at the end of the 6 months, there's 18 months left to make the payments for what's left on the loan.
Sure. And with the 1%, I've also seen 0.5%. Does that make a difference between a nonprofit or a for-profit operation?
So initially SBA came out with the rate of 0.5 is what they were going to set on all of these loans. And then as I believe almost midnight on Friday night or Friday morning, they came out and said that the program was going to be 1%.
Gotcha. So with this, we've had the nonprofit question a lot. What types of nonprofits are eligible for the Paycheck Protection Program? And Chris, I'll toss that one to you.
It's difficult from the standpoint on the nonprofits because they all want to be a part of it, and that's hard for us to tell some of them that you can't be. But it basically your 501c3s, it falls in on those. Show Me Christian County, for example, would not be one that would qualify for it. I throw that out being on there, and this presenting this, but it just falls in that line. If you fall under the nonprofit 501c3, you're going to be in there. You're going to be able to apply and get some funds on it.
Sure. So I've also had a lot of questions pouring in over the last several days, which, again, thank you all for taking your time to answer these questions for us. We have the 2 big SBA programs right now. Of course, we have the Paycheck Protection Program through the CARES Act, and then the economic injury loans, or the EIDL loans. Those were kind of the first ones to open up before the CARES Act passed. Break down the difference for us and how one goes about applying for an EIDL loan compared to a Paycheck Protection loan. Go for it, Jeff.
I was waiting to see who you want to send that to. Yes, they are. They are quite different. The paycheck protection loans are specifically to keep employees, where the EIDL loans are less specific. So you can use those for other items other than payroll and utilities and mortgage. We are handling on the bank side the PPP primarily. EIDL loans goes directly through the SBA. So you can log into the SBA website. There are links provided with frequently asked questions in the application you'll fill out there. What we have been told is if you do that to download the application, make sure you have all the information up front because if there's any information left out, we hear that they are bumping people to the back of the line for funding. I don't know. I haven't had any specific cases on that at this time, but that's what we've been told.
And we've also received the question, and we're starting to get some questions in from our participants. So we'll jump to those in just a moment. People are wondering, can we apply for both? You know, the economic injury is very different. Maybe, you know, as you mentioned, some working capital needs, whereas paycheck protection is specifically for payroll. Can entities apply for both types of programs? Are they limited? Does that hurt your application? What are your thoughts?
I'm happy to help with that one. What we have been told, at least as the bank, is that applicants are able to apply for both, but if you get an EIDL, you cannot use the funds for the payroll to cover it. Otherwise, it has to be included and refinanced in the PPP loan program.
Gotcha. So specific uses. And that helps. I know a lot of our organizations, again, to reiterate, you can apply for both, different purposes for each program. So to answer some of our questions, first, because we were on the nonprofits, we had come in through Facebook. Have you seen a lot of churches that are applying for the PPP loans, open to all of your organizations?
As far as
yes.
Sorry, Central Bank, we have seen a few come through. I don't think that's been a large portion of ours, but we have seen a few.
I would agree with that.
That's the same on our end. A few, just not an overwhelming number.
Okay. We also received a question in. It says a local business is going through the Chapter 11 process. On the borrower's PPP app, it specifically states that any entity with a bankruptcy history is disqualified. However, on the lender's app, it states that an entity will not qualify if they have previously defaulted on an SBA loan program in particular. This particular entity does not have a bankruptcy with SBA. Does anyone know if they should still or could still qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program?
Well, if they're currently in any type of bankruptcy proceedings, they need to get with the bankruptcy trustee and discuss with them before they can ever look at borrowing any additional funds. Odds are probably won't happen. So I would venture to say no, not a good idea to do that until they discuss everything with the bankruptcy trustee.
Okay. Also received a question, are payroll tax expenses or employer matched taxes covered in the PPP forgiveness?
I will take that one. We have been told it is only state and local taxes that it can be included in the forgiveness section.
Okay. We got another question through Facebook. On the EIDL loans, what type of required documentation will be required in the future for verification? And Jeff, you were commenting earlier on the EIDL. Do you have thoughts on that?
I don't have any direct information specifically to the EIDL loans and documentation that's required on that.
Okay. So for information that people need to have gathered, we've noted that, you know, there are still funds available, even though, you know, the earlier the better. So what do people need to get ready and, you know, talk to their accountant before they bring in to you all? Chris, I'll start with you on that.
Basically, when you're coming in, get your application completed, bring us 941, something to confirm what your, what your payroll has been historically, so we can get that logged in on our lender's application. From our standpoint, we're looking at a profit and loss for 2019 or 2019 tax return. Again, just to marry stuff up. That's our practice, and then move forward. It's pretty simple.
Okay. And the application itself is only about 2 pages long, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, a lot different. I've been through some processes. I noted earlier that Jessie and I have walked that road. So many of you might not know this. I am also a small business owner. So, I'm struggling right there along with you. This has impacted our business the same. And, this is valuable information for all of us. So with the information that you have to get, how long do you have to use the funds? We've received some questions from our business owners. I'm shut down right now. I'm not necessarily considered an essential business. Can I push my closing back? How long do I have to use the money, even though it's supposed to be for 2 months of payroll? Can I stretch that? Are there reporting mechanisms? All encompassing. Jessie or Jeff, I'll go to you.
I will try my best on that. So new information is honestly, it's coming out every day. The current information we have is that the loan has to be funded within 10 days from the date that it is approved. Do you guys both agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely say we were being told 8 weeks, but I'm telling people to, stand by for further information because we're receiving updates almost daily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got a 3:30 meeting almost every day with new stuff coming out. So straight from SBA. But yeah, no, as soon as we close a loan, we're funding it, and I'm telling them to start using it now.
Does anyone else feel like COVID time is like dog years? Can you all relate to that? We were talking about that earlier, and it just seems like so much can happen in 24 hours, and these things normally would take weeks or months, and now if you don't get it in 48 or 72 hours, you think someone has disappeared off the face of the map. So I hear you. I cannot imagine the roller coaster that you all are riding right now in the financial world. So with the funds themselves, and back to kind of the essential and non-essential businesses, obviously here across the entire state of Missouri, we are under stay-at-home orders. Christian County and Nixa and Ozark, our large municipalities, put those in effect even earlier. If people put their employees back on payroll? Suggestions. We've also had questions. What if I want to put my people on payroll to qualify for this and keep my business afloat, but my people aren't actually working? Thoughts on that?
From my standpoint is, yes, that's happening. There's some businesses that can't open up because they're considered non-essential or whatever. The funds are about getting payroll into their employees' hands. So yeah, you're going to be paying some people that may not be working today. Hopefully they are in the next few days or week. That way they're still able to meet their obligations, their payments, cars, autos, homes, everything. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Paycheck to your employees.
Okay. We've got a couple of questions more that have rolled in. One that was sent in says, I've heard that you can refinance an idle loan into the Paycheck Protection Program. Is that true? Since idle is a higher percentage.
I will make the comment. It's kind of back to the same comment earlier. We've been told if they've been used for payroll and payroll only, then they can be included.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Another question, and it looks like there are a few parts to this one. So it says, as an S Corp, I submitted my payroll list which all was 1099 subcontractors last Friday. The bank then said that 1099s were not included in this group last Friday, and that they have changed the rules last minute. Now I understand that I can submit my personal 1099s as an independent contractor because tomorrow's a new opening. Is that the case? Should I fill out another application? And is the 1099 I have the only document that I need?
I guess I can confirm that I have been told that April 10th is that date. We have a few that we got before we knew that was the case. We at this time haven't required a new application. It may not hurt if you have the time to fill one out. Obviously, they're not real long. I do know there's a new form that came out after the initial form. Otherwise, turn in what you have.
Okay. And
I would agree with him on that. The one thing that we have heard that a different form may be coming out for the self-employed and so forth. So go ahead and fill out what you can. Like you said, it's short form, but don't be surprised if there's not another one at 5 o'clock in the morning that we have to start using. So.
Yeah, that's also something specifically for the self-employed and our independent contractors. With the unemployment assurance, that has been extended as part of the federal program. However, the state's system is not set up for that. And so we've heard people say we've submitted, our unemployment insurance and it got kicked back. We've heard from the state they are feverishly working to update that to match the new qualifications. But, again, keep trying. Contact us specifically in this or your bank if there are questions for those independent contractors. Another question that we have, it says, Chris, you mentioned that you're funding loans when they close. Have you already closed on PPP loans and funded those out?
Yes, we have. I couldn't give you an exact number on that because we've got multiple locations, but yes, we're closing them, setting up a little table in our foyer and visiting with people and showing them where they need to sign and going through everything. So
with that 6 feet, right?
Yes, within 6 feet. In some cases, with the door closed, glass, everything highlighted and talking through the glass. So, yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Central Bank, have you guys funded and closed on PPPs?
Well, as of right now, we have not funded any. We do know that we are on a tight deadline to get that done, and we have been on conference calls. I was on one just before this. I know management's on one right now, and we are planning on starting that process very quickly.
And Jessie, Bank of Missouri, have you guys funded and seen those rolling through yet?
Yep, we've been closing in funding for probably about the last day and a half.
So one of the questions that we received also was in dealing with additional need. We've have some manufacturers across Christian County or that we know of in the region that are in the process of scaling up or maybe switching their production because they are in a PPE market, gowns, masks, hand sanitizer, so on and so forth. Suggestions for access to capital for those businesses that may need to scale up, but maybe the idle loan or a PPP isn't the correct route for them. Are you still doing regular loans?
Yes, we're still doing regular loans. I've got 3 requests sitting on my desk right now that I've got to get worked through and into the process. So yes, we're still accepting business as normal for some people out there still. Best thing is get your financials together, get with your lender, and get moving.
Sounds like you're all nodding your head. Same thing.
Yep.
It's been really interesting through our business outreach. It ranges really depending on the industry from those that are heavily impacted, potentially closed completely. We have a lot of service and food and beverage here in Christian County. They're changing their business model. Maybe now they're delivering, and doing family style meals. And then we have some that, they say we're busier now than we ever were before because they might be in that very specific category. So it ranges. We're all trying to roll with the punches through this. Just a few last questions, unless we get any in through our other streams. Specific advice for banks. Is this a time to, from our banks to our business customers, patience? I mean, what are you seeing in dealing with this program that we haven't covered already?
I will start with that. The biggest thing is honestly, SBA is trying to come out with this information as quickly as they can, but there's a delay in it. So we're still learning on exactly what it takes, exactly what the requirement, and knowing that because it's SBA, it's likely to change every single day. So just ask questions and be patient if we may not know the answer to it, but definitely stay with your banker because you have that connection and they'll be there for you.
Any other thoughts, guys?
I would just echo, please answer any phone calls you may be getting. We are needing information fast and furious to get these processed. So being responsive as the SBA changes, and we may be requesting new information to just help us out.
And from different phone numbers, because we're all working in different places right now.
Yep.
What were you going to say, Chris?
I was going to just, yes, we're going to be making phone calls just like every bank is. Pick up your phone. The one thing I didn't mention earlier that really helps is make sure you have your operating agreement, bylaws, however, what describes your business and who has to sign in what capacity. Have that readily available and get it to your banker if we don't already have it, because that's the one item we've probably had the biggest issue with, not having that on how to get our documents done in a timely fashion for them.
And we haven't talked about guarantees yet. That brings up a really good point. So for either the EIDL loan or for the PPP, typical SBA, anyone that owns 20% or more would have to personally guarantee. Jeff, I guess I'll toss this one to you. Do you have to personally guarantee these loans?
The PPP doesn't require a personal guarantee, is what I've been told. I believe the EIDL still may.
Mm-hmm. That's the same information I understand. Yes, on the EIDL. The PPP, no, there's no guarantees.
Okay. We've gotten a couple more questions in through our participants. One, it says, can they elaborate, can you elaborate on the headcount calculations in order to get the loan forgiven? The way the app reads, I just need to be back to full staff by June 30. Is that correct? Jessie, I'll ask you.
I'll be 100% honest. That's what I currently believe, but we are still waiting on that final detail from SBA because their official rules are very vague on that. Do you guys have any other comments to add?
Yeah, I'd be afraid to comment more than that. That's what we understand as well. So,
yes, I will echo the same thing. That is our understanding. I am telling my customers as we're closing, hey, it starts today. Be prepared to have all your payroll done in 8 weeks. So hopefully that falls in line, but I would much rather take a conservative approach on it for them.
We received another question in. So if the coronavirus causes Springfield in Missouri to continue the stay-at-home order and businesses closed past April 24th for another month to May 24th, then will additional funds be available to extend the PPP loans further into the future? And this may be something that deals with legislation, is my understanding, but we'll open it up to our panelists.
That's yet to be determined. We'll see what happens. I would hate to even take a guess on that.
Yeah, to address that question specifically, on Tuesday with our federal staff panel, there are talks already of there being a phase 4 of COVID relief from the federal level, and they're wanting us to pass forward any additional information. And so please get your concerns to us. We'll pass that on to our staffers as they're working at crafting this legislation, if that is a concern. We had a question come through on our Facebook page. It says, I filled out my PPP online on the first day. How do the changes in the rules apply to me? So if they filled out early and now changes have come, thoughts on that?
Well, for example, I've got the very first edition of their borrower application that came out. Our understanding, we can still use that. So there's been no changes. If they'd already done that. The other changes that have taken place, I think everybody's going to be fine from the very first day of what's happened, because in a lot of cases, and hearing how they've done, the closings haven't taken place immediately. So they should be fine without, having to be concerned with something not being forgiven or anything of that nature.
Great info. I'll wait to see if we get a couple more questions, but I have just a couple funny ones to wrap up while we're waiting. Did you all like riding roller coasters before COVID started? Because I'm sure by now it's old hat.
I loved it. I haven't written one in a long time, but I love them. It's keeping life interesting, that's for sure. It's definitely a big change for bankers. You know, I always enjoyed what I do. I hate that we're going through this, but it definitely has made the job very, very interesting. Kind of switch gears, and you know, we're doing things completely different at this point than what we've done in my history in lending, and so you know, it's definitely been a learning experience.
So with that one, we got another question in on Facebook. Do we have any idea on a timeline for approvals and denials yet?
On which program or on what?
I'm assuming that they're referring, this was the same person that asked the change question. So I'm assuming that they're referring to the PPP.
Every bank is different. I would specifically talk with your bank, but I mean, we're going through fairly quickly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you to one of our participants. Get my heart going for our virtual hug. He said, I want to go on record that this webinar is an excellent information forum. So thank you to our panelists. And they said it's extremely valuable information that it provides to our small businesses. So thank you guys for taking your time out. With that, I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. I have one last question. I asked this to our federal staffers, again, just to have something to smile about. So I don't know what your at-home situations are like, but overnight I became a full-time working mama and a kindergarten teacher. And walking around my house, talking about the PPP all day long doesn't really work for me. So I want to know if you have a really good creative alternative name for this program. I've been working on, you know, like P cubed, you know, P to the third power, different things. Do you have an alternative for us before we sign off today?
No, mine's just strictly just that. So
Being a banker, we're good with acronyms. I'm not that creative. I stick with the acronym.
yeah.
I completely agree.
Oh man. Well, yeah, it's been interesting. And like I said, we all have to laugh at ourselves. I think this is, you know, it's taught us to roll with the punches, as I mentioned, and, you know, we're all in this together. So we promised to be mindful of your time. I know that you're all extremely busy right now. As a reminder to our participants and those that are on Facebook and different streams, we did record this today, and it'll also be on our Facebook, so you can go back, reference this, and also, you know, just as a note, these are 3 amazing examples, but these are not the only lending institutions that are able to do this program. We have lots of great banks in the area that are connected, invested, and want to help through this time frame. So let us know if you have any additional questions. You can always submit those to info@showmeccmo.com or check out our website at showmeccmo.com. And Sarah and I will be happy to address all of those and get you connected to the appropriate resources. So to all of our panelists today, thank you. Keep up the good fight. Keep doing good work. And we'll talk to you all soon. Have a good day.